I am the daughter of Michael Johnson's nanny, both my parents and Michael's mother. They all warned me that I should serve the young master of the Johnson family well, whether at home or at school. You must obey Michael in everything and never have any improper thoughts about him. The reserved and cold young master would not look down upon the daughter of a nanny. However, oftentimes they don't know it. Michael always hugs me first. He coaxed me into giving him a kiss. 01. In the evening, Michael just came back from abroad. Half a month ago, he went abroad to attend an exchange summer camp organized by his department. He asked my mother to ask me to go upstairs and bring him a midnight snack. Opened the door to his room. Michael raised his eyes slightly and looked towards me. He had just finished taking a shower and had changed into a bathrobe, with his half-wet hair casually combed back. His cool and handsome face was completely revealed. Michael came over and took the plate from me. I then discovered that he had an injury on one of his hands. The joints of the fingers were distinct and very beautiful, but there was a circle of white bandage wrapped around the palm. "What's going on?" I asked him worriedly. Michael didn't answer immediately. He put the plate down casually, turned around and hugged me in his arms. His original intention was not to have a midnight snack at all. He lowered his head first, then kissed me directly. Maybe it's because we haven't seen each other for a long time. Compared to usual, Michael kissed and bit her harder tonight. Her lips and tongue were completely unable to resist his attack. I could only bite his tongue lightly to temporarily slow down his movements. Panting lightly, she pressed her lips against his and reminded him softly, "Be gentle, I have to see my mother later." 02. In the end, I was still a little weak, and I had to hold on to the edge of the table behind me with my fingers. Michael let me go. He carried me to sit on the high table behind him. Leaning over, his slender fingers personally unbuttoned the 2 buttons on the collar of my shirt, put a necklace around my neck. The other person's fingers touched my skin, and it felt slightly cool. The same was true for this necklace. I lowered my eyes to look. In the middle of the necklace is a pair of stars and moons, inlaid with diamonds. I knew it was a gift he brought back for me from abroad. Michael kissed my face and whispered my name. "Karen, do you like it?" I nodded and told him I liked it, of course, but I was more concerned about his hands. Michael then told me how he was injured. Last 2 days abroad. Although he seemed to have a calm personality, he was willing to show his tender side in front of me and whispered, "I missed you so much. So much so that, when I met a girl whose back looked a lot like yours, she was almost hit by a car. I mistakenly thought it was you, and was even more afraid it was you, so I accidentally scratched my hand when I pulled her away." 03. I didn't stay in Michael's room for long. When I got downstairs, my mother was waiting. Fortunately, Michael only kissed me and didn't do anything else. There is no sign of intimacy. She had something to tell me, and it happened to be related to the injury on Michael's hand. When the young master came back, the mistress asked him how he got his hand injured, but he refused to say more. I asked someone to investigate, and it turned out to be because of a girl who went to the same school as you guys. My mother already had some general information about the girl, and gave it to me, saying, "Karen Brown, Michael's mom asked me to tell you to pay more attention to them at school. Michael usually doesn't even need to care about maintaining interpersonal relationships. Michael is surrounded by people who flatter him and revolve around him. No one could make him take the initiative, and in Michael's mother's eyes, this girl looked like the first one. There are rarely any girls around him. I am one. But both Michael's mother and my mother were very confident in me. Maybe it was because I had sworn in front of them that I would never provoke Michael. I have always been obedient in front of them. What they probably wouldn't expect now is that the person who really has a relationship with Michael is me, who has always been the most obedient." 04. The girl Michael helped was called Jennifer Davis. She is his freshman in the finance department. Her grandfather is a professor at the college. During the summer vacation before she started school, she signed up for a summer camp experience. First day of school, Jennifer met her senior again who helped her in time when she was abroad. On the way to the auditorium to attend the opening ceremony in the afternoon, I met 5 or 6 men and women. They seemed to be heading towards the school gate. They were all good-looking and dressed in bright clothes, especially the couple in the middle of the group, who seemed like the moon surrounded by stars. Both of them have outstanding looks. And the boy has an aloof and noble temperament. Walking next to him, the girl closest to him was very pretty, with long curly hair draped over her shoulders, wearing an exquisite dress, and looking so pure and pretty that she seemed otherworldly. The group of people attracted almost everyone's attention, but no one looked at others. Jennifer was lost in the crowd, and she felt as if she was completely different from them. She seemed to recognize the most outstanding person, who was the senior in the summer camp. I asked the leader, a junior, "Senior, who are these people?" The senior student replied, "The boy in the lead is Michael, your sophomore from the finance department, and the girl is Karen from the foreign languages department." Jennifer asked, "So Karen, are you and Michael boyfriend and girlfriend?" The senior shook her head and denied. "No." Jennifer subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. The senior student told her, "Karen is just the daughter of the Johnson family's nanny." Jennifer was surprised and asked, "The nanny's daughter?" They really didn't look alike. Her temperament, dress and appearance made her think that Karen was also a daughter of a wealthy family. It seems like they have known each other since middle school. They probably just have a simple childhood sweetheart relationship. This senior said a lot. It's also because they have known each other for a long time. Michael takes good care of Karen. He doesn't treat her as a babysitter's daughter, but more like a playmate. 05. The private room for tonight's party. Michael held me in his arms and sat in the corner. He is still the one who cannot be ignored. I lowered my eyes slightly, my brows and eyes looked lazy, and my cheek rested on his neck. In school, only these few people know the true relationship between Michael and me, no matter what other people think of me behind my back. It's also because of Michael that at least no one has ever dared to look down on me openly. He lowered his head and covered me, biting the corner of my lips as if on purpose, and asked, "Are you sleepy?" I replied softly, "A little bit." Michael raised his eyes and said to them, "The bill is settled, you guys play." He took me away directly. "I want to leave first today because tomorrow is his mother's birthday party. There will be a party at his house. There may not be enough manpower, so I need to go over to help." 06. It was the night of Michael's mother's birthday party. I was in the kitchen, but I could vaguely hear the hustle and bustle in the banquet hall in front. Soon the banquet was almost over. The kitchen sink was piled high with plates left over from meal times. My mother and several other aunts went to the front hall. I tied my hair up, put on rubber gloves, and washed it slowly and quietly. I heard a slight noise behind me and looked back. It was Michael. He was wearing a snow-white shirt with exquisite cufflinks on his cuffs, and his collar and cuffs were extremely neat. The black suit pants were straight and ironed. The dress jacket rested lightly on his arm. Michael seemed to have drunk some wine tonight, and there was a hint of laziness in his eyes. The light from above seemed to pour down on him, making his handsome face with its distinct jawline appear even more noble and dignified. "He is the most honorable young master." It was as if he had accidentally entered this place that was incompatible with him. Michael looked at me and said, "Stop it. Go and ask the servants to clean up." I reminded him softly, "If I don't do it, the servant you're talking about will be my mother." He raised his finger, pressed lightly on his forehead, and came to his senses. He lifted his long legs and walked in, slowly locked the kitchen door. I was a little confused. "What do you want to do?" Michael casually placed the coat in his arm on a chair beside him. He took off his starry sky gem cufflinks, rolled up his sleeves. With her cool fingertips, she gently wiped away the dirt on my cheek and said, "Then I'll help you." Michael comes from a good family and has impeccable manners. Even if he doesn't show it, he seems to be naturally cold and arrogant towards others in his bones. But he was willing to choose to be with me, to step into such a cramped place, and the words he said made me feel a sense of separation that even I found unbelievable. No. Why would I let Michael touch me? Not just because of his identity. "Your hand is not healed yet." Michael turned a deaf ear to me, and for once he acted like a master in front of me. "You listen to me tonight." 07. Afterwards. It was late at night. Instead of sleeping, I quietly went upstairs to his room. Wearing a light nightgown that only reached her knees, she knelt beside his bed for convenience. The dark-colored bedding makes my exposed legs look white and slender. with Michael sitting on the bed. Carefully picked up his injured hand and carefully and seriously disinfected and rebandaged it. When I raised my face, he reached up and took off my hair tie. My long hair fell behind me. A hand grasped my shoulder and leaned over. He began to place small kisses on my neck. Smoothed down one of my shoulder straps. He brought me down, easily pressing on top and restraining me. There is no gap between me and his body. I was lying on the soft pillow, and could only tilt my face up, with my chin rubbing against his cool hair. I could feel Michael biting the soft flesh on my neck with his teeth, until his hand slipped. I narrowed my eyes slightly. What I vaguely thought of was the first time in private when Michael asked me to put the ring on his finger personally. Silvery white plain circle. I slowly put it on his ring finger. The boy's fingertips were also cold, and the joints of his fingers were cold, white and clean. That is really a very suitable hand to wear a ring. His fingers are also very long. I controlled my breathing, my chest rising and falling gently, and finally stopped. Michael. It's not possible here. Someone comes to clean Michael's room promptly every day. There will definitely be traces found. But it has been more than half a month since we last had sex. Michael couldn't seem to hold back tonight. When he carried me downstairs late at night. Everything is quiet in this huge villa. I closed my eyes and listened to his gentle footsteps on the steps. Every step makes my heart beat faster. Once someone shows up, he can make the secret between me, the nanny's daughter, and the young master of the Johnson family public. Fortunately, Michael still carried me to my room. On the underground floor, where only the servants in his house would go, there was a room that was not even as big as the bathroom he had. But he seemed willing to be stuck here with me. The cleanest and most reserved person is stained with the most worldly dust. Never experienced this before, first time here. Not just Michael, but also me when I bit my lip to keep from making any sound. They all exude a hidden, dizzying, and absurd sense of excitement. When I woke up, Michael was still sleeping next to me, with the quilt just draped around his waist. His upper body was naked, and there were obvious marks on his chest from where my fingernails had left their mark. After a moment, Michael also woke up and opened his eyes. There was a distinct knock on the door, which woke us up immediately. I woke up later than usual today. That's my mother outside. Karen, why haven't you gotten up yet? 08. I got up from the bed. Cover your chest with a thin blanket. Reach out and gently cover Michael's mouth. He shook his head to signal him not to make any noise. Then I took out long-sleeved shirt and long pants from the closet and put them on. Go out, close the door and go see my mother. Tell her the reason why I woke up late. I'm a little tired after yesterday's work. My mother looked at me for a moment and asked, "What's wrong with your neck?" There's still a small red bruise left on my neck from the bite Michael gave me last night. I wanted to muddle through again. But I heard my mother ask, "Karen, are you in love?" I'm not that old-fashioned. In your era of youth, you can do whatever you want, as long as you and the other person know how to protect you. She didn't think it happened at Johnson's house last night. She thought I did it at school. Is your boyfriend a classmate at school? Michael, he is one, I guess. I lowered my eyes and said, yes. My mother smiled and said, your father will come to Jiang City in a while. If you have the chance, bring him here and show him to us. My breathing was slightly stagnant. I couldn't imagine what the scene would be like when Michael went to meet my parents. I took last night's sheets to the bathroom in the room to wash. Michael hugged me from behind. Our figures were reflected in the mirror in front of the sink. I urged him. Why haven't you left yet? The satiety of last night made his eyes look lazy. He bit my earlobe lightly and said without answering me, I never thought that my future mother-in-law would find out because of sex. Michael, who is a bright and well-behaved man in the eyes of outsiders, would also utter such erotic words in front of me. It was unclear whether he was intentionally joking, whether he was referring to his mother-in-law, or was talking directly about sex. I felt a little embarrassed. Michael. 09. New students start school, and clubs and the student union recruit new members on weekends. Michael usually doesn't participate in these school activities at all. However, it is rare for him to appear here when the school's news photography department is recruiting new members. Photojournalism is not his hobby, it is mine. Today the minister asked me to come here to recruit new members. I didn't expect that Michael would come along. I can't stop him. When filling out forms and conducting interviews with other people in the department, he just stood there and didn't bother me. He lowered his eyes and looked at his phone quietly. Michael. Just as I took a registration form, noticed the other person's name, Jennifer. Then I heard the girl's surprised cry. I raised my eyes. The girl was full of energy and her eyes sparkled as she said to Michael, Senior, do you still remember me? 10. You helped me once when we were abroad, Jennifer reminded. I don't want the other person to forget me either. Michael's memory isn't that bad. He raised his eyes slightly. There was a chill in his eyes as if he had been disturbed. I don't have interviews here. Jennifer still had a smile on her face. No one dared to provoke Michael, but she was not afraid of him and said, Don't be so cold all the time. Senior, why don't you smile more? It will definitely look better. After that, Jennifer came to the interview side. She and I do have some similarities, perhaps not just from the back. I am not a person who likes to laugh normally, but occasionally in front of Michael, he likes to make me laugh. She also likes to see me smile. Jennifer's mouth corners were raised. When she smiled, only the lower half of her face was visible. She looked almost 40% similar to me. Showing the eyes and the whole face is quite different. My eyes are different. My face and the corners of my eyes all reveal a distant and delicate look. Her round eyes and chubby face make her look more innocent and lovely, making people want to get close to her. Even if two people are somewhat similar, their personalities are completely different. It is not difficult to see that Jennifer has a lively personality and always has an infectious smile on her face. The other party, who was interviewed personally by the department director, praised Jennifer highly during the interview. What's more special about her than her looks is her personality. The initiative and cheerfulness shown can easily capture people's hearts. 11. The first dinner after the department recruited new members. The minister drank a few glasses of wine, taking advantage of the lively atmosphere at the dinner. He leaned toward me slightly. I thought he had something to tell me, but I heard the other party say, Karen, don't you have any plans to date in college? The unconcealable emotions in his eyes made me understand his thoughts for the first time. I said to him, I'm sorry. After the dinner, I went to the counter to pay. I'll pay for tonight's bill first, and then we'll split it 50-50. Others, including the newly recruited members of the department, went to the restaurant entrance first. Some of the male minister's words were rejected before he could even say them. He paused but still waited behind me. At this time, some people came down from the second floor of the restaurant. Michael, who was in the lead, looked as dignified and open-minded as ever. As soon as he appeared, he attracted almost all the attention present. He lowered his eyes and looked at us. Soon he came to my side, slowly took out his cell phone, and said to the boss in a calm voice, Bill, please. Michael looked at me and said, Including her table. It's my treat. Michael. I called Michael, but she was unwilling to listen to him in public. You don't need to invite me. It's not that they don't want him to pay, but the department has a long-standing tradition. I whispered, Don't get broken when you get to me, okay? It was almost like giving Michael a hard time in public. He was not annoyed. His expression remained unchanged. He thought for a moment and said, Okay, I paid for it alone. When Michael passed by the minister on his way, he just glanced at him indifferently. He said nothing, but it made the male minister realize that Karen has a childhood sweetheart like Michael, who is outstanding in all aspects. Compared with this, how could it be possible for me to easily fall in love with others? The people standing outside could see clearly what happened at the checkout counter. Jennifer was among them. I heard people whispering about how lucky Karen was to have met a rich young man who didn't care about his family background, and they envied the relationship and affection between the two childhood sweethearts. But Jennifer noticed something they didn't notice. Everyone says that Karen and Michael are the nanny's daughter and a high-ranking young master. It is obvious that the former should obey the latter in everything. Jennifer felt that it was Michael who was listening to Karen. 12. Michael was away from Jiang City for a few days, as he accompanied his father on a business trip to the coast. He has already started to get involved in the family business. After I came back, I took a rare opportunity to relax and made an appointment to watch the F1 Racing Championship. Before the race started, I accompanied Michael to change into the corresponding racing suit. Cheer for the racer he supports. In his own dressing room, I was the first one to change. Several of his friends were still waiting, and I didn't want to stay with him too long and cause people to think too much. So he took the watch he took off and went back first. Before pushing open the door of the VIP box in the main stand, I heard a conversation coming from inside. There was a mixture of male and female voices. Did you know? A freshman girl named Jennifer came up to me and openly said she liked Michael. She even asked me directly what Michael liked. A few people chuckled. It's rare to see a girl who's so bold and straightforward in front of Michael. The first person who mentioned this said, "That girl is really interesting." The boy said slowly, "To be honest, from certain angles she looks 30% like Karen. Even if she only looks 30% like Karen, she's still pretty enough." Several people fell silent for a while and suddenly someone said, "Then you say one has a more interesting and active personality and looks similar to Karen. Although Jennifer looks like an ordinary student and seems to have no background, I heard that she is actually the most favored youngest daughter of the Davis family in Jiang City, and her family background is also comparable. Michael really won't be attracted to it at all?" I became acquainted with them because of Michael, and we only interacted with them to a certain extent. Several people admired Michael and were polite to me. The reason they could joke about it in private was that they also believed that there would be no future for Michael and I. "Why don't you go in?" Michael was wearing a white racing suit, the same color as mine, which made him look taller and more handsome. He walked towards me lazily. The sound inside stopped abruptly. Michael was also interested in motorcycles, sports cars and the like, and liked to play with them himself. When he became an adult, he got his first sports car. However, the first time I saw him racing with others in a sports car, I had a nightmare that night. When he was scared awake and tried to comfort me, I asked him if he could touch these things less. Michael agreed to my request. I almost stopped playing, changed my hobby, and occasionally watched a few car races. He came into the box with me. I didn't say much to them because it wasn't just them. I myself had also been uncertain about the relationship between Michael and me. Someone called the waiter in and opened the champagne. I don't drink. After watching the game, I also have a part-time weekend job as a tutor, teaching English in the afternoon. Michael asked the waiter for 2 glasses of lemonade, one with ice and the other at room temperature. He hugged me from behind and watched the game in the stands. Michael didn't drink either and whispered in my ear, "I'll take you to the party, teen." On the way, Michael mentioned something to me while driving. "Remember your mother said that your father was coming to Jiang City. Wife," he called in a low voice, "I have booked a hotel in advance so you don't have to worry about food and accommodation. I will be responsible for all expenses." After listening to him, I leaned over and kissed him on the lips while waiting for the red light. She curved her lips and said softly, "Well, thank you then. Isn't it what we should do?" Michael raised his eyebrows and curled the corners of his lips. He said, "That morning your mother mentioned that you should bring someone over." He joked with me, "You really don't need me to go?" I was not so polite to Michael. I accepted his help and gifts in my parents' affairs, not because I was economically disadvantaged, but Michael and I are really familiar with each other. Michael and I were together without telling anyone. But this private relationship wasn't just for fun and wasn't meant to be seen in public. When I was in junior high school, my mother accepted the kind financial support from the host family, so I was able to go to school in Jiang City and met Michael. In the 3rd year of our acquaintance, just after my 17th birthday, he confessed his love to me. In our last year of high school, Michael hid it from both sets of parents and brought me up for an early love affair. After being together for more than 2 years, Michael has become more mature and behaves in a proper and measured manner. He is only 20 years old now. At my age and his, there are still many unknown uncertainties in the future. My parents are even more afraid of his identity. How could I take him to meet my parents now? The part-time job is in a villa area. After teaching the kids English, I was about to pack up and leave. I met someone coming in. My student, a 6-year-old girl, rushed over to the person and called out, "Auntie, you are here." It was Jennifer. Jennifer obviously saw me too and said with a smile, "Karen, what a coincidence." It's a coincidence. I had just driven my new car a few times when I accidentally scratched another car outside. The person who scratched me was Michael, Jennifer said. I wondered why I saw him here. So Michael is here to pick you up. Jennifer and Michael's families often have contact with each other. Jennifer's oldest brother, William Davis, knew Michael. When Jennifer and I went out again, the car issue had been resolved and Michael didn't make a big fuss about it. William said, "Michael, I'm so sorry. I will bring my little sister to apologize someday." 14. Michael said lightly, "It doesn't need to be so troublesome." Jennifer said, "Michael, Karen, this is a special fate for us today, isn't it?" Michael glanced at the other person and his eyes dimmed. "William, so you all know each other." Michael opened the car door. William suddenly called me, "Karen, thank you for your hard work recently." He said to me sincerely, "My daughter really likes you." As an employer, William seemed a little too polite. "It's what I should do," I replied. "I have a younger sister who is about the same age as Lisa. I like Lisa too." The man looked at me and smiled. "That's great." Jennifer took the opportunity to look at Michael. Michael held the car keys, his knuckles cold and white. "Look at people. Just lean against the car and wait." He drives a Rolls-Royce Phantom today. The black body lines are cool and in line with Michael's temperament. The only flaw is the scratches. Jennifer didn't care much about the compensation she had to pay, or how much it would be. Through the slightly open door, you can see part of the car's interior. The most eye-catching thing is the starry sky ceiling. It seems like you can see the sky full of stars as soon as you look up. I thought the tone of William's voice and the meaning he wanted to express were just my illusion. That evening, I received a message from William that had nothing to do with his daughter's studies. "Karen, I want to invite you to dinner next week. Is that okay?" Michael's mother found out about this. It made me go back to Johnson's house. I was there when Michael's mom told my mother. William asked me to tell me that little Lisa was the daughter of his ex-girlfriend. He is only 28 this year and has been single for many years. He is mature, capable, and very caring, Michael's mother said. He is also the eldest son of the Davis family. At least half of the family fortune will belong to him in the future. The fact that William specifically sent someone to find me shows that he really values and loves Karen. She looked at my face for a while before turning to my mother and saying, "You have indeed given birth to a very beautiful and sensible daughter." My mother replied, "Madam, that's not appropriate. Karen is only 19 years old, she is young. There is no rush, she already has a boyfriend." Boyfriend? Can he compare to William in terms of age, family background, and other aspects? Michael's mother chuckled. "Think carefully. Your family's chance to live a carefree and prosperous life is right in front of you." 15. After Michael's mother left. "No matter whether your boyfriend is good or bad," my mother told me, "no matter how great the temptation is, you can't be the first to do something to offend others." I assured her, "Don't worry, Mom. No matter how good the conditions William can offer, they are not temptations to me. I know how to deal with this." On the day I quit my part-time tutoring job, my father and my sister happened to come to Jiang City that evening. In the high-rise restaurant that Michael booked, the family was reunited. I held my sister's hand and followed the waiter to the private room, where I ran into Michael. There was a group of people following him, all of whom were older than him. There were both men and women, and most of them were dressed in neat professional attire. Michael was also wearing a suit and tie tonight, which was rare in school. His shirt was neat and he wore an expensive watch on his wrist. Although young, he has already shown the aura of being able to stand on his own. Even people who don't know him can tell at a glance that he is the most extraordinary person among the group of people. Someone beside him called him in a low voice, "Michael." Michael told me that he also has a dinner party tonight with the company's partners. But it didn't say that the reservation was made at the same restaurant. My mother clenched her fingers, unable to change her master's habit, and called Michael, "Michael." He lowered his eyes slightly and motioned for the others to go first. He just paused for a moment and said to my mother slowly and softly, "Don't call me like that when you're outside next time." Michael and I looked at each other. "Just call me by my name." When we entered the private room, my sister asked curiously, "Who is that?" "He's Mom's employer. the mother said to her sister. Remember to be polite when you meet him. She also told my father. You too, my father replied. The other party is of such a noble status that apart from today, there will be no chance for us to meet and spend time together. Maybe we won't see each other again. I left the private room once during the meal. Outside in the corridor, Michael gently grabbed my wrist and pulled me around a corner. He pressed me against the wall, pressed his chest lightly, lowered his head and approached me, his breath lingering around me, and whispered softly, "Did you praise your boyfriend in front of your parents tonight?" Michael pressed me hard, so I had to tell him, "It's a compliment." "Aren't you worried about being discovered?" he asked quietly. Michael was not in a hurry. It seemed like he had made a deliberate decision to book the same restaurant tonight. He lowered his eyes with an unclear meaning in his eyes and said, "That's better." Slowly speaking, "Let your mother see, am I good or bad in her eyes?" Michael placed one hand behind me, his fingertips already resting between my slender waist and hips. There was a close bond between the two. I smelled a slight scent of alcohol on him, closest to his neat collar, where I still had his light, unique scent. Makes the smell of alcohol less unpleasant. I took some time out to meet him. I didn't have time to worry about whether he did it on purpose. I still gently warned him, "Drink less." Michael placed his fingers behind me and stroked them slightly. I wore an apricot long skirt tonight. The slim fit style showed off my delicate lines. Her long hair was tied up, and some strands of hair fell down as she moved. Her watery eyes only held Michael at this moment. In the other person's eyes, the girl looked delicate and a little lazy. Staying obediently in his arms, a small word of concern can directly touch the softest part of his heart. He loosened the tie around his neck with his other hand, and his Adam's apple rolled slightly. Listen to my wife." Michael couldn't hold back any longer and buried his handsome face in my neck. "Baby, you smell so good and beautiful tonight. I know my parents are still waiting for me." Michael is wearing a three-piece suit tonight, suit pants and leather shoes. His legs were also pressing down on me, with his knees slightly bent and resting against the wall. I am still confused by his appearance. When he kisses you, respond to his kiss. I rarely stick out my tongue, but at this moment she was seduced by him. The tip of her tongue touched his lips, went a little deeper. She took the initiative to reach for him, slowly entangled with him. Until, behind us came my father's voice. "Karen? Is that you?" 16. Michael had his back to the visitor. But even when viewed from behind, his aura could not be concealed. When my mother followed out, I recognized who he was almost at first sight. I was trapped in Michael's arms. One side of the skirt is still exposed underneath. It is near the smoking area of the restaurant. My dad just wanted to come out and smoke a cigarette. Michael really was. What he said came true. Faced with their incredulous gazes, I know I can't hide it anymore. 17. My parents went back to the private room first, before bringing Michael over to see them. "Michael," I called him. Raising his hand to adjust his tie, he said to him, "My dad doesn't follow so many rules when he eats at the dinner table. He likes to be casual. Because of the family he lives in, Michael always pays attention to table manners unless we are having a meal together in a formal occasion. My mother can't change her usual habits, but if you see them later, you can't let my mother bow her head to please you." I asked him, "Can you take the initiative?" Michael has so many completely different habits from my parents in his daily life. Just when I was still worried that they wouldn't get along, Michael suddenly chuckled. He curled his lips slightly, looked at me brightly and said, "I really think I'm pretty awesome. When my wife was only 19, she had to meet her parents." 18. My father felt a moment ago that this was someone he would never have the chance to meet again in his lifetime. At this time, Michael put aside the social engagements. Sitting in the private room where we were supposed to have dinner, my father still looked a little nervous. Michael took the initiative to pour wine for both parties and toasted my parents. "Uncle." Michael also called my mother Auntie. "Hello." Michael spoke first. Even though everyone knew who he was, he still introduced himself again. "I'm Karen's boyfriend, Michael." My mother had been very quiet until my father started talking to Michael and asked, "How long have you and Karen been dating?" Michael answered every question and gave a clear answer. 2 years and 4 months. Hearing this, she raised her eyes. Only my sister, a little 8-year-old, couldn't see much. She was happier than my parents and excitedly called Michael brother-in-law. He curled his lips, took off the Rolex on his wrist, and gave it to her as a toy. Go and exchange it for candy. My sister asked, can it really be changed? My mother quickly snatched it back and tried to give it back to him. Michael, it's too valuable. What it can be exchanged for is not sugar, but almost enough for a house in Jiang City. He was so generous to the child, obviously he was really pleased. Give it to me. I have to give her a gift as a welcome present. It's something that can preserve its value. She can do whatever she wants with it in the future. Finally, my mother asked Michael, I just want to confirm between you and Karen. Did she take the initiative to provoke you to get close to her? Mom. She was not misunderstanding but worried. Michael quickly denied. No, I couldn't wait to get her to be with me when she was still young. I had just turned 17 and on my birthday, in addition to confessing my love for him, Michael kissed me for the first time. To each other's first kiss. At 18 people become adults, but he was afraid that I would be scared and thought it was still a little too early, so he waited another year. Until 4 months ago, he couldn't bear it any longer and took me to try it for the first time. In our affairs, my birthday has almost always become a time point that Michael wants to step on. He really couldn't wait a moment. Michael assured my mother. Even if my family finds out one day, I will still say the same thing. 19. Michael went to pay the bill in the end and called a taxi in advance to take them back to the hotel. Before leaving, my sister gently tugged at the corner of his clothes. He didn't mind even though his clothes were wrinkled, and reached out and touched the child's face. Michael is not an easy person to get along with. He often gives people a feeling of being too indifferent, and he doesn't seem to like children very much. You can also find some of the behaviors of a rich young master in him. We can do that tonight. It's nothing more than the simplest love from the heart. The family was reunited, and I was supposed to follow them back to the hotel. Seeing him waiting behind us alone, I still said to my parents, Mom, Michael drank a lot tonight and I'm worried. I'll go back with him. Michael bought a house near the school a long time ago. I made him pear soup to sober him up. He took a shower, changed his clothes and put on a white sweater. Just lean against the kitchen island and wait. I turned around and saw that he looked handsome and gentle. Michael raised the corners of his lips and said, So this is what it feels like to have someone care about you. It's late today. Michael still wants to do it. It is the time when one is youngest and most energetic. Think about it, he has only been eating meat for a few months. But there are no condoms at home. Family planning products have now become the fastest used items. He didn't want to endure it. So he took his cell phone and went downstairs to buy it. There were a few men and women, students from Jiangnan University, who went to a bar and stayed out too late, past the school's curfew time. You can only stay at the place where one of them usually rents. When they ran into Michael in the neighborhood late at night, they couldn't believe it at first. Michael is the most famous person in Jiangnan University. Even wearing a thin sweater, one could still see his face at night, still as handsome as ever. But Michael was also holding a black garbage bag in one hand. It looks like he didn't forget to take down the garbage at home and throw it away when he went out and downstairs, even though it doesn't affect his handsomeness at all. But Michael's homely and lively look is really inconsistent with his usual image at school. The richest young master would use such precious fingers to pick up garbage? Several people knew Michael. As they passed by each other, Michael didn't even glance at them. He finished throwing away the garbage. Just go to the vending machine downstairs. Standing there lazily buying the goods inside. I paid with my phone. Soon. What fell out of the vending machine was a box of grape-flavored light milk. 2 small boxes of stuff also fell out. When he picked it up, it was easy to tell what it was. 20. These people from the school met Michael outside the school last night. They had already gone far away, but then came back without any prior agreement. Unexpectedly, he uncovered the secret of Michael from their school. Michael has a woman and they may be living together. I just don't know who it is. I didn't dare spread it widely, but it was quietly circulated privately. When Jennifer heard this, she was stunned. She was a little distracted during the regular weekly meeting of the news photography department. It was not until the regular meeting ended that the deputy minister left her alone. It's Karen. The news photography department received an anonymous letter, revealing the inside story of a senior student in the art department who dropped out of school due to depression. The real reason was related to her male tutor. At today's regular meeting, only Jennifer fully supported exposing the matter in the campus newspaper and the department's official account. She was not afraid of anything, but others and the minister had concerns. I kept Jennifer and asked her directly, "I'd like to do a report with you. Instead of signing the news photography department, it will only be signed by the two of us. Would you like to do it together?" This is not as simple as posting an anonymous letter. At least the authenticity must be verified and there must be real evidence, which will take at least some time. Jennifer agreed as expected. I will work overtime with her in the ministry office tonight. I sent Michael a message to tell him I would be home late, but I didn't say what it was about. I told him that he doesn't have to pick me up from school after he finishes his work at the company. When Michael returned to school, he naturally opened the office door and came in. Unexpectedly, there was another person there. 21. Ever since Jennifer fell in love with Michael, she has thought about what it would be like if he were in a relationship. When you treat your girlfriend in private, will you behave differently than you do in public? She imagined it. After hearing today that there might be a woman with him, it turns out that maybe someone has already seen his other side. But apart from Karen, there were no other opposite sex around Michael. The two are well-known childhood sweethearts. They all said that there was only pure friendship between them, and that they had faces that the opposite sex couldn't refuse. If they were attracted to each other, they would have been unable to resist being together long ago. Michael opened the door and tried to come in. He lowered his eyes and looked at the two people inside. Go out again. After a while, someone came over and brought 2 cups of warm coffee. Michael ordered the delivery. Although Jennifer didn't pursue Michael in a very open way, she didn't hide her love for him either, so it was impossible for Michael not to feel it. 2 hot drinks, he actually ordered one for her. After knowing the rumor that he might have a woman, Jennifer held her coffee but could not think of any extra thoughts. She even noticed that Michael came in and left immediately afterwards, which was a direct and conscious way of avoiding suspicion. He ordered coffee for her as well, more like he didn't regard her as his suitor, but as his subordinate who was working overtime with Karen tonight. Jennifer had guessed it right. Michael would never do anything to embarrass Karen. He respected Karen as a partner. Jennifer and I decided to proceed in 2 ways. She would stay on campus and contact and visit former roommates and friends of girls who were still on campus or had dropped out. I went to the girl's hometown and personally went to look for her. Dropping out of school was not the girl's original intention, but she didn't dare to go to school again. At that time, she was the first to confuse right and wrong, and her parents thought she was ashamed. Fortunately, she left evidence. The long journey round trip takes 5 hours. Michael was driving and he accompanied me on this trip. Jennifer and I used enough evidence to edit and compile a long report of the truth, which is scheduled to be released on the eve of its release. When I edited the last word on the computer, it was already very late. Late at night, Jennifer and I high-fived each other across the desk. Jennifer had always thought that the other party might dislike her because of Michael, but in fact the other party never mixed personal emotions into work. Jennifer asked me, "Karen, that teacher has a background. I am not afraid because I am not afraid by nature. But I also understand that my character is formed because my family is protecting me from behind. What about you? Is it because Michael is behind you?" I answered her truthfully. Michael is part of my confidence. The other part is my ideal career in the future, which requires me to have more justice and principles. Jennifer smiled at me and said, "When my brother said he liked you, I thought, he is already a father, how can he dare to say it? Now I want to say a few good words for him. Except for his age and having a child, he is very good in other aspects. Some people say that I look a bit like you. Don't worry, he is not a sister lover. He doesn't think I am straight. He thinks I am just a child. But to you, it's as if he has seen a beautiful person like you for the first time in his life. You're also the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. From the heart. It's more beautiful when you focus on what you do." Jennifer half-jokingly said, Karen, my brother won't give up so easily. Will you really not consider my brother and give me a chance to be my sister-in-law? 22. I shook my head at her. Jennifer was picked up by her family driver in the evening. She had already gone downstairs, but for some unknown reason she stopped and left. Michael came to the office on the first day and never showed up again. Jennifer has always felt that there is an inexplicable sense of disharmony between Michael and her, Karen, whenever she sees them interacting with each other. In terms of their identities, the young master and the nanny's daughter both said that the latter must be at a disadvantage. Jennifer knew that this time Michael personally drove with others on the trip out of town. If Michael wanted, with his ability, he could make things simpler, save a lot of trouble, and not have to put in the effort himself. But he was not helping from beginning to end. But he was doing it alongside me. At this moment, Jennifer suddenly understood what that feeling of disobedience was. Their relationship is not one in which there is a huge disparity in status and the woman is in a humble position. It's more like they swapped roles. Like a guardian knight and his princess. Jennifer hesitated as if something was waiting for her to verify, but finally she went back upstairs. Wait till Michael comes to pick me up. Seeing him appear in the office, I was so sleepy that I put my cheek in my hand and fell asleep in the next second. He came in front of me. I sat on the chair, didn't get up, closed my eyes, gently pursed my lips at him and said, "I'm so tired." This is a vulnerable side that is only shown to the people closest to you. Michael stood and scratched my chin twice with his fingers, then held half of my cheek with his palm. I rested my head on his warm hand and dozed off for a few seconds. He directly picked up my bag and coat. "Go home and sleep." I opened my eyes. "Just sit there and let him put his coat on me." She was sleepy but still looked at Michael without blinking. He squatted down slightly and leaned over to help me button my coat, one button at a time. Who could have imagined it? Between the two, it was Michael, the young master, who was bending down to the other. 23. Jennifer's aunt has a good relationship with Michael's mother. One day, Michael's mother invited Jennifer and the niece to her home for afternoon tea. The aunt actually came for her eldest brother William to discuss with Michael's mother whether there was any other solution. My aunt said, "William is the object of many women's admiration. The little girl is so young, she doesn't know how to seize the opportunity she was given." By chance, Michael came back. Michael's mother asked him to come over and say hello. Michael looked at her aunt. His aunt praised him. Michael is only 20 years old, so young and in the prime of his life. He smiled. The smile was very light, and there was a coldness in the eyes. His light voice suddenly asked, "Well, how do you compare with Brother Song?" Her aunt was a little confused, but Michael didn't explain it any further. Michael's mother told Jennifer not to sit with them all the time, and asked her to find Michael and ask him to take her around the house. Michael left just a moment earlier than her, but there was no sign of him. Jennifer had no choice but to walk around the huge villa by herself. There is an astronomical telescope on the terrace on the 4th floor of the villa. Just as Jennifer was about to touch her, she was stopped by the Johnson family's servant behind her. "Jennifer, I'm sorry. That's the young master's stuff. He doesn't like others touching it." Michael's stuff, an astronomical telescope. Used to look at the stars in the sky. The starry sky roof in the car. The necklace on Karen's neck is from a foreign designer brand. Reach for a star. Reach the stars. And that night in the office. What else is there to not understand? How much he loved Karen. Much love, Karen. Jennifer ran into Michael as she was leaving in a hurry. He stood on the stairs looking down silently. He looked at her, as if to say, "Did you find it?" He was not panicked or afraid at all. When she got downstairs, Michael's mother saw that she looked unhappy and asked, "What's wrong? Didn't you find your brother Michael?" Michael's mother probably also knows that she likes Michael. Jennifer hung her head in dismay. "Aunt, I won't like him anymore. He has someone he likes." After seeing off the guests, Michael's mother went upstairs to look for her son. I also passed by the 4th floor and saw the servants were about to clean the terrace over there. As evening approaches, the sky is filled with sunset glow and stars begin to appear on the horizon. Michael's mother walked over, but the servants in the house did not dare to stop Michael's mother from touching the young master's things. The angle of the astronomical telescope has already been adjusted to focus on its observation target. Michael's mother saw it, the brightest and brightest star in the vast starry sky. My mother was going to quit her job at the Johnsons. She wanted to go back with my father. I have already submitted my resignation to the housekeeper. When I was helping her pack her luggage, she suddenly said to me, "Karen, after thinking about it, I still want to remind you. You are still too young and he is very fond of you now. Have you ever thought about what will happen in a few years when it's time to consider reality? If there was a girl with a more comparable family background and a nice personality like Jennifer, would he make a more suitable choice?" 24. Someone knocked on the door twice. I'll go open the door. It's Michael who's here. He looked at my mother behind him and said, "Auntie, I have something to say to you." He came in and said, "My uncle runs a restaurant business. I have a friend who owns a restaurant. He is going abroad and plans to sell it at a low price. I know a lot of people, and I just happened to think this was an opportunity, so I didn't help out." Michael asked, "Have you and Uncle ever considered staying in Jiang City to develop? If you are interested, even if you don't have enough money, I can give you money, but it's not for free, it's an investment, and you have to bear your own profits and losses." My mother was obviously moved. The Johnson family's nanny room is usually deserted. There were suddenly a lot more footsteps outside today. I obviously heard it too. I always had a bad feeling and wanted to stop Michael, but he went out to see first. I was in the room watching Michael standing outside the door, calling out to the person who came, "Mom!" Michael's mother brought people with her. She asked everyone to look for him, but Michael was nowhere to be found in the entire villa. Finally, I asked where Karen's room was. Then she saw her son. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he is destined to be a favored child of heaven in this life. He should have been the most distinguished owner of this villa. But he walked out of a servant's small room in a self-degrading manner. Why do you look down on William? It turned out that her son had been captured. 25. After Johnson's family knew about it, he took the initiative to have an affair with the nanny's daughter. Michael was beaten by his grandfather with a ruler and a whip. It was Michael's mother who couldn't bear it and finally stopped him. Michael woke up in the hospital again. Michael's mother sat in the quiet ward and said to him, "Your grandfather and your father have decided to send Karen abroad soon, and she won't come back for a few years. You have to break up. After a few years, you will definitely forget about her." Michael just woke up and spoke slowly to his mother. "The first time I met her, I was in my rebellious period. You brought a very beautiful little girl to me. She was obedient and good at studying, and you let her take care of me. She was actually very scared of me at the time, so she didn't dare to intervene. So the first thing I said to her was, 'Don't be afraid, I'll let you take care of it.'" Michael told his mother word by word the story of him and Karen. "It took me a long time to get her to let down her guard and accept being with me. At first, she didn't dare to give me her heart completely, because anyone could see that the possibility of our love having a future was extremely slim. So I did 100 things to love her, said I loved her 1,000 times, and finally won her the most precious true heart. No matter what happened next, I made her never let go of my hand." "Mom!" Michael called in a low voice. Since he became an adult, Michael's mother has never seen her son vulnerable again. "I have become a little colder and a lot more mature. How did he suddenly become an adult with broad shoulders? Turns out that there is a girl to protect." "Mom!" Again and again. Just like when he was young, he would go to his mother whenever he had problems and seek her care. This was his silent plea. No one should make things difficult for Karen. I want her to be fine. Otherwise, something might happen to her. It wasn't her who was destroyed. It was me. 26. 5 years later. The Michael of that time is now 25 years old, young and promising, and has become the famous Michael. When their relationship was exposed, they were separated by their families. Now everyone knows that Michael has a white moonlight who is abroad and has not returned yet. But I heard that the Johnson family recently has plans to form an alliance with the Davis family in Jiang City. Just half a month before the upcoming marriage, Michael's white moonlight returned to China. It has been a few years since I returned to China. At the welcoming party held for me, Michael and Jennifer arrived one after another. Long time no see. The man is no longer as young as he used to be. His every move and gesture has become more mature and steady. His face became increasingly cold, and when he wasn't speaking, it seemed as if all his emotions were hidden beneath his handsome appearance, making it even more difficult to tell whether he was happy or angry. Jennifer used to be a very cheerful person, but now there seems to be a hint of loneliness at the corners of her mouth and eyes. She found me alone. "Sorry," she said. "I owe you an apology. If I hadn't let it slip, you and Michael might not have been separated so early." I replied to Jennifer. "It has nothing to do with you. It is actually a process that Michael and I must go through." I gave her a smiley face gesture. "Smile, I'm not used to you not smiling." Jennifer smiled, looking at me, and said, "I didn't expect that those who left were free, while those who stayed were helpless." She murmured to me, "Do you think it's possible for me to marry first and fall in love later if I marry into the Johnson family?" Before I could answer, my mother, who was not far from me, interrupted me. She glanced at the wine glass in my hand and said, "You should drink less. It's not good for your health right now." After the banquet was over, I walked out alone. Behind me, the lights are dim. That's the restaurant opened by my parents. They wanted to stay and clean up, and wouldn't let me help, so they asked me to leave first. A man walked over, his figure still half hidden in the darkness, Michael holding the car keys in his hand. He took the initiative to speak to me and said, "I'm not drunk, I'll drive you." I couldn't say no to him, and I had something else that I needed to resolve between him and me. After getting in the car, I told him the address. Michael asked, "Why don't you stay with your parents on your first night back home?" I said, "They are busy and may not come back. We have to stay at someone else's house tonight." The man paused and whispered, "What a coincidence. It's on my way." Waiting for Michael to take me to the place. But he took out the car keys and got out of the car with me. After taking me into the closed elevator, he finally stopped pretending and with a little force, clasped my wrist in his palm. Slowly uttered those 3 words, "Someone else's house?" He looked at me for a moment and then said, "How long have we been apart? I want to go and see if this person is a man or a woman." When we got out of the elevator, Michael pressed my fingerprint to unlock the door, and I told him the address, which was the door to the flat. The lights inside came on and the room was silent. There was no one in sight. When the door to our house was closed again, Michael stood directly behind me. At the same time, his trouser-clad knees slowly pushed between my legs. Michael, who was indifferent outside, looked completely different at this moment. With a hot and passionate kiss, he blocked my mouth. "Baby, pretending to be unfamiliar with your husband? Is it fun?" 27. In the middle of the night, my mother called Michael personally to complain. "Michael, your wife drank tonight. Did she tell you that she's planning on getting pregnant? I saw that you didn't touch it at all, but she drank it. I'm still worried that even if you want to have a child, you don't need to rush today." My mother had personally warned me about this, so I bit my lip and silently instructed Michael to hang up the phone. "It's too late." The man was behind me, and I leaned in his arms, with my back pressed against his naked chest. When he answered the phone, we were wrapped in the same bed sheet. "Well, it's been so long since we last met. 1 month is really too long for us. Reunion after a long separation." He dropped his phone and continued to kiss her, entangled with her again. "This is also the first thing to be resolved tonight. I wasn't wearing it just now," he said bluntly. Michael clearly did that on purpose, knowing full well that I only drank a little. I gently told him, "You really think you are so great? Do you think you can do it in 1 night? When the whole night of absurdity is over?" At dawn, the hands were folded together, and the ring on the ring finger was shining brightly. Michael whispered in my ear, "Wife, happy 7th anniversary to us." 28. The Johnson and Davis families are indeed planning to marry. But it's not Michael. Now there is really no one who can control him. It's his cousin's son and Jennifer. However, Jennifer may have another choice. I am not only Michael's white moonlight. It is also well known that Michael would rather be beaten than marry his wife. On my 3rd day abroad, Michael was waiting at the door of the apartment I rented abroad, with injuries on half of his body and feeling exhausted. After we met, we didn't explain anything to each other. He didn't need to explain why he wanted his family to know. I don't need to tell him why I still choose to go abroad. He just told me softly, "I really, really love you." I responded to him, "I know." Michael took off his clothes, and when I applied medicine to him, he seemed to be fine, and he even chuckled and said, "It was worth the beating. Once and for all, no need to hide it anymore." He hooked my finger, as if he was afraid that I would take his family's words seriously. Half jokingly, this usually handsome and gentle man could also say these words. Michael gave you his first love, first kiss, and even his first night. So what? He is asking me to take responsibility. Karen, I can only accept long-distance separation, not breaking up. I lowered my eyes and promised him, no matter what the future holds, even if everyone is pessimistic, I still choose to believe him, believe in myself. I can't just let Michael work on our relationship unilaterally. Being abroad made it easier for me to refine my language skills, and I also took minors in international relations and journalism. After graduation, I got my wish and entered the diplomatic field. Even last year, his family could no longer control him after he and I got married. I am still assigned to embassies abroad. He has just been transferred back to his country. During my last year as an attaché, I was in a war-torn area and encountered the most frightening things. After communication was restored, the first caller was from Michael's mother. She said, "Be safe." She later added, "Not just for Michael. I am not trying to eliminate the gap between us due to his identity and family background. It wasn't for the approval of his family. Michael said I am just his choice. I don't need to care about what his family thinks. I have ideals first and foremost for myself. Secondly, Michael is gambling the rest of his life with his family. I always want to prove that his choice was not wrong." Later, Michael called me almost immediately. I learned that when I encountered a dangerous moment, one of the soldiers sent as reinforcements took off his bulletproof vest and gave it to me. "Give it to you?" He repeated the question while breathing a sigh of relief. "Michael," I told him, "could you please stop being jealous?" At that time, the other party protected me only because of my identity as a citizen of country Z. When you encounter danger and difficulties overseas, please stay calm and composed and contact the local embassy or consulate. The motherland behind is the strong backing of every Z countryman. As I do the work I love, I gain a deeper understanding of its significance.
My most important love.
During the call, his gentle voice was also heard. As always, "Good. I see. Wait for your glorious return. You ask me why I am so stubborn and single-minded. Because as soon as you appeared, everyone else seems just like that. Over."